Okay, thank you all for joining. We'll get started. This is a webinar on the interim final rule on the TANF Work Outcomes Measures implementing Section 304 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. We're excited to be able to talk to you all about the interim final rule and some additional guidance that has been published on our website. We've got a full set of slides to share with you today. The meeting is being recorded. We welcome any questions you have. Please enter them into the Q&A box, and we will try to get through as many as we can at the end of this webinar. If we don't have a chance to get to it, we will certainly follow up. So thank you. Thank you all for joining. We wanted to start off with some introductions. So my name is Lauren Froelich. I'm the Deputy Director of the TANF Data Division in the Office of Family Assistance. And Kim, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Judy, and I work in the Office of Grants Management and have also been supporting OFA Central Office with the implementation of Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Thanks, Kim. And before we get started, we wanted to get a better sense of who is on the call. So we have a poll for you that should be popping up on your screen. 2 questions: where are you joining from? So state government, local or county government, non-governmental, federal government, and then how would you describe your role? And you can select multiple options there. So we'll just give a few minutes for folks to enter their responses. I'm not sure how good our response rate is, but if we could see the results. Okay, great. So we've got about 3/4 of folks are from state or territory governments, about 10% from non-governmental or federal, and then some from local or county. And got policy data, operations workforce. We've got really everyone. So great, great to have you all here. And thank you for telling us who you are. So just at a high level, as you may remember, the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, which passed just over a year ago, included 4 sections related to TANF, 2 of which relate to work outcomes, 2 of which relate to work participation rate measures. For the purposes of this webinar, we're going to be focusing on Section 304, the reporting of work outcomes. But first, we're going to touch on those other 3 sections briefly. So the work participation rate changes, those are not effective until fiscal year 2026, so over a year away, which is not a lot of time, but it is, there is some time still before that goes into effect. There are 2 sections there. Section 301 resets the base year for the caseload reduction credit from 2005 to 2015. Section 303 requires that states must provide at least $35 per month of separate state program funded assistance to count in the WPR calculations. And we know folks might be eager for more guidance or information on those. There's not much we can share at this point, which is why this is not the focus of this webinar, but we can share that in the recently published Spring 2024 Unified Agenda, there is an estimated publication date for the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking related to these sections for this November. So stay tuned for more information. And of course, as that rolls out, we will be communicating more about those measures or those sections. And then for the pilot program, there is a lot going on right now, as you may be aware. Section 302 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act introduced a new pilot program that will allow up to 5 states to negotiate benchmarks for work and family outcomes instead of the work participation rate. Our team our office has been working a lot on the pilot program, has been communicating a lot with states, territories, and other partners. We've very recently, published a request for proposals with updated guidance and application submission information. You can find that on OFA's website, and proposals are due September 3rd. Along with that application, there was a letter from ACF's Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary. So you can also see that on our website. And all of this followed a Dear Colleague letter that was posted in May. So that, again, is not the focus of this webinar, but we just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of the application and to know that there will be more updates coming soon, including a pre-recorded webinar and questions and answers. So stay tuned for all of that. All of this information can be found on the FRA page on OFA's website. This is the screenshot, so you're not supposed to be able to read this necessarily, but this has the links to all of the pilot information, sessions we've had previously, and the information we're going to be sharing today. So we can also make sure to put that in the chat so that you all have that link if you haven't been there already. And so with that, we'll kind of start getting into the meat of the TANF Work Outcomes Measures. Last week, July 19th, we published a program instruction with a technical resource. And a lot of the content that you will see for this webinar comes from that technical resource. So hopefully, if you've had a chance to look at that, you might be familiar with some of what we're going to cover today, but the technical resource does go in more depth. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kim.
Thanks, Lauren. So as Lauren shared, we're going to focus on first the TANF work outcomes, the first 3 measures. So Lauren, if you want to go to the next slide. Yes, well, I'll back up here. First, the internal final rule was published on June 28th. Some things to know about the IFR is that there are 2 comment periods. The first is 60 days, and then the second is a 30-day comment period to meet the Paperwork Reduction Act requirement that will lead to OMB approval of the new reporting forms. There are 3 total forms that we're going to be using. And then the third comment period, which started on June 28th and ends in December, applies to the whole of the IFR. So if you have comments about the forms, make sure you get those in within the 60 or 30-day period. If you have comments about the IFR generally, those can go in during the 180-day comment period. And you can find the IFR and instructions about comments in the text. So the first three measures of the FRA are the TANF Work Outcomes Measures. The first is the employment rate, which is second quarter after exit, which is the percentage of individuals who were work eligible individuals as of the time of exit from the program who are in unsubsidized employment during the second quarter after the exit. The second is the employment retention rate. So this is the percentage of individuals who were work eligible individuals as of the time of exit from the program who were in unsubsidized employment in the second quarter and who are also in unsubsidized employment during the fourth quarter after they exit. The third is median earnings in the second quarter after exit. So the median earnings of individuals who were work eligible individuals as of the time of exit from the program who are in subsidized employment during the second quarter. So we're looking at their wages associated with that employment. And then the fourth is the Secondary School Diploma, or its Recognized Equivalent Attainment Rate. And this is the percentage of individuals who have not attained 24 years of age, are attending high school, or enrolled in an equivalency program, and are work eligible individuals or were work eligible individuals as of the time of exit from the program who obtained a high school degree or its recognized equivalent while receiving assistance under the state program funded under the part within 1 year after exit. And that is a mouthful. And the way we're going to break out this webinar is to talk about the first three because they all relate to employment, and then we'll handle the fourth, the secondary school diploma, separately because we've broken them into two separate reports as well. So we can go to the next slide. For definitions, we have exit, and a work eligible individual will be included as an exiter in these measures only when their family ceases to receive assistance and will not meet the definition of an exiter when the needs of the work eligible individual are removed from the assistance payment, but the family continues to receive assistance. And an individual in the family must have been work eligible as defined in 45 CFR 261.2 and 1 in their last month of assistance. And the reason why we did this is we wanted to be able to account for situations and where the family was continuing to receive assistance, but the needs of the work eligible individual were removed. So always keep in mind, we're talking about the family ceasing to receive assistance. Additionally, another thing to keep in mind here with the exit is that some states may move individuals out of the TANF program and into separate state programs funded by maintenance of effort funds or solely state funded programs not reported as MOE. The statute clearly states with respect to a state program funded under this part, which refers only to the TANF program and not separate state programs or solely state funded programs. So when considering who exited from TANF for the purpose of this data collection, states should only include those work eligible individuals who were moved to separate state programs or solely state funded programs and have not received TANF funding assistance for at least 90 days. Finally, we included the 90 days or 1 quarter after exit period in response to comments on the request for information we issued last year, and to account for churn and to align as best we can with WIOA. For unsubsidized employment, we have defined unsubsidized employment as full or part-time employment in the private or public sector after exiting the TANF program. We understand that there is not a way to separate unsubsidized from subsidized in our data sources. So that's why we're doing that. And then finally, secondary school diploma is a regular high school diploma, as that term is defined in 21 USC, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, and amended by the Every Student Succeeds Act. So we'll go on to the next slide here, and we'll actually get into what all of that very wonky language really is going to mean for all of you. So again, we are talking about the first three measures a little bit differently than the fourth. So the first three measures will come to us through the Work Outcomes of TANF Exeter's report, which will be submitted quarterly. The fourth measure, the Secondary School Diploma or its Recognized Equivalent Attainment Rate, will be an annual report. And then if states choose, there's also the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report, which will also be due annually. The one exception to the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report being optional is for states or territories who do not have an unemployment insurance program and thus do not submit data to the NDNH. At this time, only Guam falls into this category. And we'll get into those details here in a minute. All of the reports will be on a lag. So you'll see here that our quarterly report, which is the Work Outcomes of TANF Exeter's report, those exiters who exit in the first quarter of a fiscal year, the data for those exiters will not be due until 1 quarter after 45 days after the second quarter after they exit, so May 15th. And then for our annual reports, which are the Secondary School Attainment and the Supplemental Work Outcomes reports, those are also on a very significant lag, not due until, the first is not due until November of 2027. And we, again, will get into who is included in each of these reports as we go through the webinar. The next slide. Okay, so the first three measures and the mandatory report that is associated with them, the Work Outcomes of TANF Exeter's report. This report applies to the first three work outcomes measures. It is a quarterly report and it is mandatory for all states and territories. The report consists of Social Security numbers of all work eligible individuals who exit TANF in a given quarter. So for these measures, states do not need to do calculations on their own. States are only responsible for the collection and submission of Social Security numbers of all work eligible individuals who exit TANF in a given quarter. Once you submit the Social Security numbers to us, we will then match the Social Security numbers with quarterly wage records in the National Directory of New Hires, the NDNH, to obtain records from 2 quarters after the individual's exit through 4 quarters after the individual's exit and calculate the measures on behalf of states. So this one mandatory report is not, it is not on states to do the calculation. We'll be doing that on your behalf. So I mentioned earlier that this report will be on a 1 quarter lag, and that is to account for the 90-day exit confirmation period. The first quarterly report for fiscal year 2025, covering Q1 exiters, which are those exiters who leave October through December, will be due May 15th, 2025. So as an example, if an individual's exit, if an individual's exit day is confirmed when 90 days have elapsed since the participant last received assistance, the state will submit the Social Security number 45 days after that quarter ending in which the participant's exit was confirmed. So if we take a look at an individual who exits on November 12th of 2024, which is fiscal year 2025, Q1, for the state to confirm that individual's exit day, 90 days must elapse since the participant last received assistance. The exit date is confirmed on February 10th, 2025, which is fiscal year 2025, Q2. The individual social security number is then included as an exiter in the quarter ending March 31st, 2025 report. And which covers the period October 1, 2024 through December 31, 2024, which is fiscal year 25, quarter 1. So again, as you're going to be collecting data for the first time, beginning quarter 1 of fiscal year 2025, that data collection will not be submitted to us until May 2025. Next slide. Related to the work outcomes report is the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report. This is an optional report where states will calculate the first 3 measures using our methodology, but their data. And our methodology is included in the TANF Work Outcomes Technical Guidance that Lauren referenced earlier. This annual report will also be on a lag. As I stated, it is an optional report, except for those states or territories who do not have an unemployment insurance program and thus do not submit data to the NDNH. At this time, only Guam falls into this category, and we'll be working closely with Guam to provide technical assistance to support the calculation of the performance measures. Otherwise, states have the option to submit this report using their own data. It must be universal level data, and they'll submit it to us annually. And I'll show you the calendar on the next slide here. So the submission of the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report will be on a lag because states must follow the individual exiters 4 quarters after exit, and the availability of employment and wage data is also on a lag. So for example, if we're looking at someone who exits in fiscal year 2025, quarter 4, 2 quarters for the first measure after exit is fiscal year 2026, quarter 2, 4 quarters for the second measure after exit is fiscal year 2020, 26 quarter 1, and then employment and earnings data is not reliably available until 2 quarters later, making fiscal year 2027, quarter 2, the first time employment and earnings data will be available. So the report will be due the following, due November, the following quarter, the data became available. So I'll just say that again, because I got myself a little turned around. So the person exits in fiscal year 2025, quarter 4, 2 quarters after exit is fiscal year 26, quarter 2, 4 quarters is fiscal year 26, quarter 4. We're not able to get the employment and earnings data realistically until fiscal year 27, quarter 3, making the report due the following November, which is November 14th, 2027. And so our annual reporting periods for that are for fiscal year 2025 exiters, you'll be submitting for the first time November of 2027. For fiscal year 2026 exiters, you'll be submitting the report in November of 2028. So now we're going to be moving on to the secondary school diploma measure, and I'll turn it back over to Lauren for that.
Thanks, Kim. So yes, as Kim mentioned, this 4th measure is different in a lot of ways. One being that there is no national data source that we can match on our end to get the answer. So it is something that by its nature is more delegated to the states to be able to collect the data and calculate the measure. And then we will be supporting states in that effort. So the Secondary School Diploma or its Recognized Equivalent Attainment Rate is also an annual report with a significant lag due to when the data is available. It is mandatory for all states, and states will be calculating the rate and reporting the data using ACF methodology and their own data. The rate is another mouthful, is definitely a wordy one, but in brief, it measures whether TANF work eligible individuals under age 24 who are enrolled in a secondary school program or its equivalent attain a degree or its equivalent while receiving TANF or within 1 year of exit. And this is something that, you know, Congress gave us this definition. There were some timing aspects that are kind of ambiguous in the language itself, so we wanted to make it as clear as possible in the interim final rule and in the technical resource and other resources to support it, to make it as clear as possible how to determine if someone's eligible when they're included in the numerator and denominator. So we hope we've helped clarify with some of this technical resource. But in short, an individual is considered eligible for the measure if in a given federal fiscal year, in at least one reporting month, they simultaneously meet all of the following criteria. They are less than 24 years of age. They're enrolled in a secondary school or recognized equivalent program, and they're a work eligible individual. And so if they're eligible, that determines whether or not they'd be included in the denominator of the measure. So they need to meet all three within 1 month, and then they're eligible for that year. So you'll see in the technical resource, we kind of say it in several different ways, break it down in several different ways to try to, if you're a visual learner, if you're a, you know, if you prefer to see it written out, hopefully there's one way that works for you. This is maybe a visual representation of the numerator and denominator. And one way that it was helpful for us to think about it is it's sort of two populations, because unlike with the first three measures, which are just TANF exiters, here the measure includes those who are currently on TANF or attain a degree within 1 year of exit. So in the numerator, we have both eligible individuals who are current recipients who did not exit, they're current, who attain a diploma in the reporting period. And we have eligible individuals who exited during the reporting period and attained a diploma within 1 year of exit. So that's the numerator. And then the denominator is all of those who are eligible, who are current recipients and did not exit, and all of those who are eligible who did exit during the reporting period. So this is simplified perhaps, and there are some nuances that we'll get into a bit, but this is what the calculation is essentially. And these dates and sort of the lag is going to be very similar to the other annual report. In this case, we took into consideration comments we'd gotten about, you know, the lag inherent in getting education data, the considerations around the school year and what that might mean for when data is available. So there is a 1 fiscal year lag to allow states time to collect the attainment data. And so the report will be due the November following the quarter the data becomes available, which is 2 fiscal years after the reporting period. So in the technical resource, there are plenty of examples kind of walking through like, okay, the person exits this time, this is the reporting period, this is when the report is due, but you also see that on this slide. To support the interpretation of this measure, we've also included a set of scenarios in the technical resource. So there are 5 scenarios that each gives the eligibility characteristics of an individual and specifies if or when the individual attain their diploma, and based on that, whether they would be included in the measure. So we encourage you to look at those scenarios. That's not to say that they are fully comprehensive. If you either think of or encounter a situation that doesn't seem to meet the scenarios we've presented, or just you're not clear on how to interpret it, please do send our way. And we intend to update the guidance, the scenarios, so that others have that information. So one scenario in the technical resource that I'll go through here is, so if in 2025, an individual turns 23, is enrolled in a secondary school program, and is simultaneously a work eligible individual. So they are eligible in 2025, and they exit TANF in 2025, and they attain a secondary school diploma in January 2026. So that is within 1 year of exiting TANF. So they would be both in the denominator and the numerator for 2025. And they would not be represented in the 2026 measure, because an individual is always counted back to the last time they were eligible. And so their attainment is counted towards 2025. So again, it's kind of, all of these are sort of a puzzle. The scenarios are intended to help walk through that. We also have this flow chart in the resource to help determine whether someone belongs in the denominator or the numerator. So we encourage you to look at those resources. We also, as Kim mentioned, along with the interim final rule, we have initiated the Paperwork Reduction Act process for these 3 new data information collections. So we are hosting the draft report forms and instructions on OFA's FRA page, and we are welcoming comments through August 27th on those data collections. After that time, we will make revisions as warranted, and then there will be another 30-day period for comments before those information collections are finalized. But we were told that we could post them on the website. Usually you have to kind of request them individually, but we wanted to share them so that you have a better sense of what those could look like, and to get that feedback. One thing I'll note for the Work Outcomes of TANF Exiters report, it was very intentionally made to be as simple as possible. So it is literally a CSV file of just Social Security numbers of TANF exiters in a given quarter. So that's not so much a clear report as an example of what that would look like, but it would be as bare bones as possible to make it as easy as possible for systems to adapt. So it's essentially would be an extract from your database or data systems. But again, if there's something about the form that would be an improvement, please do let us know. The intention is for all of these forms to be submitted through the TANF data portal. So this is, they're not modifying any of the current ACF 199, ACF 209. These are in addition to those, but also through the same portal. So just to give you a sense of the timeline, so the interim final rule was published at the end of June. Now we're in July. We published the program instruction with the technical resource last week. Today is the 24th. In the next few months, we're here to continue to provide technical assistance. We plan to initiate office hours through the regional OFA program managers and specialists to be available to states to answer specific questions that you have, especially as you've gotten a chance, and others in your team, to dive into the IFR and the reporting forms. And then data collection begins October 1, 2024, which is around the time when the Paperwork Reduction Act package will be finalized. And then the first report would be due May 15th. And again, that would just be Social Security numbers of those who exited TANF in the first quarter of 2025. So, we've been working diligently on our end to try to get you all this guidance as soon as possible. Things, of course, always take longer than we'd hope, but, we hope that we've provided some clarity. We know there are still questions, and we hope to answer as many as we can now, and ones that we can't answer now to answer later. And there are a few different ways to share your thoughts or your questions. Comments on the interim final rule should go through the process on the Federal Register, but the comments go through the TANF data inbox. Comments on the information collections go through a different inbox by August 27th. If you have questions about the work outcomes measures in your state or territory, please reach out to your regional contact in OFA. They'll help us be able to track the answers. And you can also include the TANF data inbox so that we'll get that information. And we just also want to say thank you for those of you who submitted comments on the request for information, who participated in listening sessions, at conferences, things like that. We really took all of the feedback and comments seriously. We intentionally included the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report so that states that choose to could showcase whether or what employment outcome measures they're calculating at the state level. So that was something that we had heard in the request for information. There was some interest in, there were a lot of states that liked the idea of a match at the federal level because, it would minimize the lift on states themselves for those that didn't have matching agreements in place. But we know that there are a number of states who have been calculating work outcomes measures who maybe have different data sources that get you a different picture of the work outcomes measures. And so the intention of the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report is to really learn from those states that have those agreements in place, that have been doing this work, and to understand how does that differ from what we're seeing with the NDNH, and what can we learn from it? Because, this is really, along with the pilots, we see these both as learning opportunities for how to best measure outcomes from TANF. And we know we don't have all the answers right now, so we're hoping to learn from the experiences as this rolls out. So with that, I know we've got some questions and comments in the chat. So I think we can just start digging through those.
So I've kind of grouped them by topical area for us. So the first one, or first group of questions are about the definition of exit. So first, can you speak a little bit more about the choice of the word family in the definition of exit and how that might play out in a couple of scenarios, such as when children in the home continue to receive benefits, but the work eligible parent is sanctioned, as an example, or so that, I guess that was the most common example, is when the work eligible individual has been sanctioned, but the family continues to receive assistance. How does that play out in our definition?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think one thing that to note with that is, um, we were very sensitive to the idea of churn, that folks, sometimes leave TANF and come back, that they might be sanctioned and come back. The 90 days is intended not to solve that question altogether, but to kind of mediate it. So if the sanction is for less than 90 days, then they certainly wouldn't be considered an exiter at all. If it's more than 90 days, but the family continues to receive assistance, they would not be considered exiters because they're still work eligible and the family continues to receive assistance. So by that definition, I believe they would not be exiters. I want to just, we'll extra confirm that because I know that is like a key nuance and something that differs based on state policies and how states treat parents, adults who are sanctioned. So that's something we can continue to provide clarity on. But in general, as if the family is continuing to receive assistance, that case has not exited. Another way to think about it is if you would have considered the case closed and reported it in section 2 of the ACF 199, that is another way. I mean, that's not an alternative definition for exit, but to think about, is that family still receiving assistance? Yes, then they have not exited. If it's closed for more than 90 days, then yes, it would have exited. I hope I didn't add confusion there, but we can continue to provide clarity on that.
All right. Also related to exit, in the definition of exit, it says the last day of assistance cannot be determined until 90 days have elapsed since the participant last received assistance. We have a state that doesn't report the dates of assistance, so it's not stored in their data systems. So the definition is a little bit trickier for them. So is there an alternative? So instead of using the last date of assistance, can we instead use the report months or TANF months to determine the period?
Yeah, I think this is a case where it's really at least 90 days have elapsed. So if you're thinking about it as 3 months, that's going to be your metric there, just to know when you can be confident that they've exited. Yeah.
Thank you. Related to the 90 days, what about is 90 days defined as no TANF grant or no TANF funded services?
We're talking about that. Cash assistance, not services, the grant.
And then you spoke about this earlier, Lauren, just to talk about churn. So the question is, and I think this is just reiterating that 90-day period. So the question was, what about individuals who exit TANF and then rejoin TANF within a specified time period?
Yeah, exactly. So if it's less than 90 days, they would not be included as an exiter. If it's been more than 90 days and they exit again, they would be included in a subsequent report.
All right, thank you. So then we will move on to questions related to the work outcomes report, which just a level set where we are. The work outcomes report is that quarterly report that all states must submit the Social Security numbers for. So the first question related to the work outcomes report is, do those TANF states who currently report to ACF by way of a sample still need to submit their entire universe of Social Security numbers of TANF leavers?
Yes, so that is an important point. the TANF Work Outcomes Report. No, what is it? I don't want to. The first, the quarterly report is all the social security numbers of all TANF work eligible individuals who exited in a given quarter. So it is the universe of the caseload, but it is only that one data element, the social security numbers. And this is important, and this is what has kind of limited the ability to do these matches in the past, is that for those states that submit a sample, you can't track individuals over time if we only have a sample of that. So that is a universe data element.
Related, and I think this must be coming from a state that already submits universe data. The question is, are all the exited population already submitted via ACF 199 disaggregated data section 2 person level data? So what's the distinction here between what a state might be submitting on the 199 versus these new social security numbers going in?
Yeah, so for states that currently submit universal data, it may be the same population. I would say the key difference is that 90-day or 3-month, whatever. I mean, it's 90 days, but operationalized. It is waiting that period to determine exit. So it could be that it's the same set of folks. I mean, with states that submit universe data, we're more able to currently track when they've exited, but this is just making sure that the measure is standard across states. There's this report with this more clearly defined exit period, but it is going to be a similar population, if not the same, as you submit on the closed cases.
Thank you. All right, the next question is just about it. We're still on the work outcomes report, is on the first quarter lag, so it might be good to go to the next slide, Lauren. I think the one that shows the timing.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, it sounds like the first quarter submission of social security numbers of all work eligible individuals who exit TANF. Exit is defined as 90 days of no receipt. Does this mean our reporting of first quarter may be blank or null, as WEI will not meet the exit definition until quarter 2? Or are states expected to use fiscal year 24 quarter 4 data to determine exit eligibility? So I think the bottom line of this question is, who is included in the first submission and when is that first submission due?
So that's why it's not until May 15th, right? Because if you were submitting on the same schedule as the ACF 199, you wouldn't know who had exited. So we're not expecting any report until May 15th, when more than 90 days has elapsed from the individual who exited on December 31st. So that it's awkward, but there's this quarter lag, as Kim had kind of highlighted. So there shouldn't be a blank file, and it's just that it is that quarter delay.
All right. This next group of questions is around what is and is not included in the NDNH. So I think to answer this full group, Lauren, can you tell us really what is in the NDNH? What is the benefit in terms of the data? What might not be included, like self-employment, gig work, and what, if anything, will we be returning to states after they submit their data files to us?
Yeah, all great questions. I am not personally an expert on the NDNH, but I work with folks who are well versed in it. We have been matching to the NDNH for years now to produce similar performance measures as part of the congressional justification, as part of the president's budget, and before that as part of the high performance bonus measures. So there's a lot to be said about the NDNH. We included some of this information in the preamble for the interim final rule. At a high level, I would say the advantages of the NDNH are that it includes not just new hire, but it includes quarterly wage records and unemployment insurance. But what we're really using this for is quarterly wage records from every state that is submitted as part of from their state directory of new hires. But so it has data for every state for every quarter. So if somebody is employed in another state, that's going to be picked up here. It also includes federal employment. So in terms of, Congress asked that these measures be able to be comparable across states, not to say that we are directly comparing states, but that there should be a standard match. And so that's really what the NDNH offers us. We know that there are limitations, as Kim mentioned, self-employment, gig economy. Some of that varies by state. Some states report some of that data to the NDNH, but it is not every state. So there are gaps in the NDNH data. And that is where the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report really comes in and is an opportunity to provide that supplemental data. So in this process, we had a lot of conversations with colleagues in the Department of Labor, learning more about the Swiss system, limitations there, how the Pearl works for those who are connected to the workforce side of your systems. And we know that there is data that is missing and that can be that can complement what the NDNH provides. So that is where the Supplemental Work Outcomes Report comes in, and we are committed to when publishing, when finalizing these measures, being very clear about what is missing in the NDNH and using, hopefully, the Supplemental Work Outcomes reports to be able to add to the research and general understanding of what are the limitations, what are the benefits, how accurate a picture does this provide? Because I think there's a need for more understanding of what exactly what are we missing by using the NDNH, and so we'll be communicating that as clearly as possible. So I encourage you to look at the preamble for some more information on the NDNH. There are also some resources on the Office of Child Support Services website that go into more detail about what exactly is and isn't in the NDNH. And then in terms of what we can provide back to states, that's something we've been having conversations with our colleagues in the Office of Child Support about, because we do want to make this as useful to states as possible. So that's something that we're hoping to kind of share more on later. I will say we also have been working on profiles using NDNH for states as sort of an early view of what NDNH data can tell us that we're hoping to share with you all soon. So stay tuned for that, but we are definitely interested in sharing as much as we can given the limitations and restrictions around data sharing for such a sensitive data source. I know we are running low on time. How are we doing on questions, Kim?
We are running low on time, so I'm gonna skip to the high school attainment questions, which for the most part revolve around what will we be accepting as verification that someone has attained their high school diploma or its recognized equivalent.
Yeah, this is a question that we've gotten a lot that we know is top of mind. We are planning to have sort of an expansive list of what can be included, but we're just we're going to need to follow up with more clarity on what exactly can be included in that. Just because I want to make sure it's as clear as possible, but it is going to be an expansive list. We know that it can be challenging to get this data, especially to follow folks after they've left TANF. So we are sensitive to that. We also know that this is going to be a very small population for many states because it is only those who are under 24 who are enrolled in a program. But that it is still a significant task to try to track those folks down. So more to come on that. You know, we really wanted to get this technical guidance out, but it is not the last you will hear from us. Definitely more to come.
I will ask one more question related to secondary school. If a high school diploma is now a performance measure, will it become a core activity?
Yeah, I think that is up to Congress. That is was not something that they addressed with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, but I think that's something that's important context that we will include when reporting out these measures, because obviously if you're measuring the outcomes, the attainment of secondary school, but the program is not encouraging secondary school attainment because it's not a core activity in the same way, that appears to be a contradiction. So that is something that Congress didn't tweak with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, but I think can be something that we highlight when reporting out these results. And it is something I think would make a great comment, and is a comment we got in the request for information. But if you'd like to make a comment for the IFR as well, we encourage you to do so.
Since we're at time, if you want to go to our final slide where everyone can get the information about how to ask follow-up questions. I think we did answer the majority of questions that came in, maybe not with the specifics that you may have asked, but we did our best. If you continue to have questions, please do check out the IFR itself and the technical guidance that we issued. And then you can also continue to reach out to your OFA regional contacts or reach Lauren and myself through tanfdata@acf.hhs.gov.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining and your great questions. This is not the last you will see of us, but we really do appreciate your questions, and we'll keep working on answering them as soon as possible. Have a good rest of your day.